All right, guys, welcome back to BlockHash Exploring the Blockchain, episode 270. Today, we have an awesome guest on, Alex Zeltcer, CEO of nSure.ai, talking about fraud prevention and how they incorporate AI into helping solve this long-standing problem. Alex, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you here.
Thanks a lot, Brandon. Thank you for having us over.
Absolutely. So to kind of kick it off and get it started, I'm sure the audience would love to know more about yourself and what you've done in the past. So give us a bit about your personal story and your backgrounds and how you kind of got into the line of work you're doing now.
Sure. So half of my career is roughly with large corporates, and I've ran large organizations and ran companies for companies that were acquired by other companies, and I was brought on to run them, running businesses up to 150, 200 million in revenues, and then after doing that for slightly over a decade, decided to kind of start my career in startups. And launched the first startup in 2009, delivering groceries in Dallas, Chicago, and Denver. Pretty early on in that time frame, did that for about 7 years. Sold the company to a number of grocery chains in the U.S. Came back home to Israel with my family, and then joined another company to run it called Zeek. Zeek was a gift card marketplace, very similar to Raise, if the audience is aware of what they do in the US. And Zeek was a gift card marketplace, very fraud attractive, I would say. We found that fraud there is extremely difficult to fight, and decided to create our own tools after we haven't been able to identify a tool that would provide good enough results. And after about 3-4 years of doing that, we realized that what we've created could be used by other companies and other industries in general. Decided to spin it out, brought external investors to acquire the technology and the team, and actually formed nSure.ai as part of that. And that's how nSure.ai came to life.
Nice. What was the inspiration? Did you have an experience with fraud yourself? I know I have multiple times in the past. Was that the main driving force behind doing this, or was it something else?
I would say we've encountered some fraud at the grocery delivery service, but really it's Zeek with the gift cards. We launched the service in Israel, and we didn't see any fraud at first, zero. And then we launched a few months later. We launched the service in the UK. On the first week, we were hit by 40% fraud, 40.
Oh wow!
And by the way, it ended at 40 because we were ran out of inventory. It would have been much worse if we had more. And we didn't even figure it out. And on the first week, we were very happy because we ran out of inventory. It's great. And then the chargebacks kept coming in, and we realized that we didn't have such a great business. And with that realization, we figured that the fraud prevention issue is so much bigger than we expected it to be. It became we created an entire team and eventually an entire group of people that dealt with that while selling gift cards. And that was really the inspiration behind it, realizing how difficult a problem it is and how lacking the existing solutions are.
So what's the solution that you guys came up with nSure to help solve this issue? Because it's been an issue for a very long time. I've dealt with it numerous times in all kinds of different ways, and fraud is, really annoying to deal with. So what's the methodology you guys use, and what's the solution with nSure?
So my partner and our CTO has been one of the founders at Zeek as well, and he's been with AI. He's been in AI since very early days. I would say probably 2007, 2008, dealing with natural language understanding and recognition at the time. And he realized very early on that the only way to solve the issue is by using vast amounts of data, looking at thousands and thousands of different features in real time in order to try and make an accurate decision. Once we realized that, it was very easy to identify what is it that we need to do on a very high level, and then solving the problem, going deeper and deeper into the details, understanding what are the I would say, what are the specific issues that we're trying to solve, what are the different methods by which we can solve them, is what brought us eventually to what we have today at nSure.ai.
Got it. Tell me a bit more about the actual methods that you guys are using.
Yeah, so I think what we've realized is that, and gift cards are similar in that perspective to crypto and to other products, is that when you start selling products that are delivered immediately and can be resold for a value, what you encounter is not standard fraud, or the fraud that other people see in standard e-commerce. You encounter scalable fraud. You encounter a scalable fraud that is perpetrated by fraudsters that do this as a business. These are not the fraudsters that are trying to steal a pair of crazy sneakers or a flight ticket or an iPhone. These are the people that go and acquire a list of stolen financials on the dark web, whether these are bank accounts or credit card information or PayPal accounts, and they need to turn them into more cash to justify a return on their investment, basically. And they do that by basically buying and selling stuff. And imagine the difference between buying and reselling 1,000 iPhones versus buying and reselling 1,000 game codes for Xbox, or 1,000 gift cards, or crypto, obviously. And as a result of that, they invest heavily into penetrating services that deal with these products. And as a result of that, they develop what we call very, very scalable fraud patterns. What we see is something that looks very similar to DDoS. These are not, one-off individuals that are trying to steal specific items. These are really patterns of groups of individuals that seemingly, all of them seemingly legitimate. That unlike DDoS, they're not trying to crash your servers; they're trying to suck up all of your inventory. And what we do is we're trying to identify these patterns. We're not trying to identify a specific identity. We're not trying to conduct identity verification and verify that the person behind the transaction is the actual owner of the credit card or the bank account. What we're trying to do is to see if we can link groups of people that behave similarly, that shouldn't really be there. It's not something that you can identify on the first transaction or the second transaction. And I'll give you an example. If someone is hesitating, 2 seconds and 13 milliseconds before they punch in their password, and they do 3 mouth gestures before they go on and check out, on the first transaction, you can't really identify anything. But on the fourth, where the numbers are very, very similar to this one, you're saying, hey, there's a pattern emerging. Should we track it? And then when it happens on the fifth and sixth time, you start blocking it. And what you're doing by that is you're blocking the scalable fraud attacks. You're still letting some fraud go through, which is cost of doing business, but you're really completely annihilating the scalable fraud patterns. And this is where we excel. And obviously, as the example of the hesitation before the password key in or whatever, there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of different features that we look at.
Yeah, this is very interesting. It's a very interesting way of going about it, detecting these anomalies, no matter how big or small. What's the repercussion, and what's the percentage that it fails? And, there is someone out there who's going to make a transaction, but they're not, maybe they have ADD and they're like wherever with their mind and they're just flicking their mouse and they forgot their password. And could that something, trigger it? Like, are there potential situations where, from a percentage standpoint, maybe this would be maybe higher in terms of not being accurate, or is the AI, good enough to, kind of determine someone's personal behavior patterns? I'm not quite sure how the AI fits in yet.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, you're completely right in describing the problem. What you mentioned is what we call on the professional terminology is false positives. Right? These are people that are legitimate, that for some reason we decide are fraudsters. It does happen, obviously. We pride ourselves at being able to sift through the different transactions, and today we approve between 95 and 98% of the transactions that go our way for clients that have been with us for longer than 3 to 6 months, which means that we approve roughly 10 to 15% more than other fraud tools that are there. Out of the 5 to 2% that are left that we do decline, and we do have control groups for measuring that and identifying what percentage of false positives we do have. It's roughly half. So half of what we decline are actually legitimate customers that that we failed in identifying. But still, this is significantly lower than what is normal in the environment, and what we're seeing in specifically in the crypto space is astonishing.
How do you get those odds even higher that you detect fraud and not accidentally think someone's activity is fraud? Do you just get into understanding behavioral patterns and maybe implementing it on someone's phone, or does a bank do this? Or maybe the better question is this meant for the bank and a credit card company, or is this meant for a user to integrate through a third party?
So that's a great question. The key users of this technology are whoever offers the service. So some banks could be our clients. We do have a couple of those today, specifically in Web3. We do have a number of crypto exchanges or on ramps, and a couple of NFT marketplaces that utilize our service. And then what would happen is that we would screen transactions just before they happen, primarily on the fiat to crypto exchange. And that's the domain where we can help approve more. One of the things that we help on primarily in this aspect is by reducing the need for identity verification. In crypto and in NFT today, you can see lots of companies utilizing the biggest hammer that they can for identity verification, which is KYC. Obviously, sometimes it's required by regulation, so you have to do what you have to do. But a lot of the companies are going through KYC for every new account, and some of them are going through KYC on every other transaction. And what we are able to do, because we're not looking for identity verification, because we know that people don't want to share their identities when they're conducting their business on crypto, or when they're conducting business in these different domains, not necessarily for bad reasons, but really for good reasons, right? They value their privacy, and as a result, KYC simply doesn't offer enough of a solution. What we do is we employ these behavior analytics, and we employ these anomaly detections, trying to identify these groups of people, and by eliminating that level of fraud, allowing the good users to come through. And we've seen that extremely successful specifically in these markets.
Is this something you can imagine maybe being implemented into the crypto industry for maybe exchanges or top line wallets that want to help prevent fraud as well, but also want to let their users maintain a bit more of their privacy and security?
Exactly. I think that when you look at most fraud tools out there, they would ask you to verify an email address, to verify a phone number, to provide you with credentials of, or pictures of your ID, etc. This is something that we believe is unnecessary, and from our data, it's not very efficient. I can share with you that from all of our crypto clients, we've run a research on the first half of 2022, and we realized that 76% of the fraud that got through was done by fully verified or fully KYC verified accounts, which means that the KYC verification simply doesn't help. And the only way to really block the wrong users and allow the right users to go through is by employing something different than identity verification. And what we do is an example of that.
Got it. Makes sense. Have you guys got some existing use cases or integrations so far? Are you working with anybody?
Yeah, I don't want to mention specific names. Okay. Yes, we do have more than one crypto exchange or an on-ramp that is already using our service. We have an NFT marketplace already using our service. We have a number of payment services that are using our service, and various different companies, prepaid companies, gaming companies, etc.
What about insurance companies? I feel like this might be a really good, like in tandem type partnership where they might be able to provide better insurance rates or something, or, actually insure things that aren't normally insured by actually being able to identify actual fraud. Like I have a friend that's going through this right now and he's dealing with some fraud with his credit card and, they won't give him the money back and they're making him pay off the debt and everything because they can't guarantee that he was actually scams and they took all the money and they took the cards, even though he was.
Yeah.
And I feel like if there was some fraud detection, like Ensure, they could detect these anomalies, based on maybe his behavioral patterns or how he spends, like you guys are doing, then maybe that insurance company behind the credit card company would be like, okay, we'll take care of it. We'll give you the money back and credit it. It's not your fault actually, because we are able to use AI to detect this. Have you guys thought about maybe going that route too? I think it's very
Yeah,
makes
it's
sense.
interesting that you raised that question. We do have
Mhm.
two insurance companies on our investor side.
Okay.
So insurance companies do think that it has value for them. They haven't figured it out, right? They don't know exactly how to do that yet. One of our investors is AXA, which is the biggest insurance company worldwide. Another is an Israeli insurance company that has decided to invest with us. We don't yet have a business model where we actually provide an insurance coverage, right? So our business model is very similar to insurance companies, where we guarantee the transactions, but
Mhm.
we're still not an insurance company, and it's still not a regulated environment. But this is definitely something that we're looking closely into with our investors to find a way to to be able to eventually provide this as an insurance product.
Is this domestically being implemented in Israel, or are you guys doing this globally?
No, so we do have a couple of clients in Israel, but it's a very small percentage of the business. Most of our
Okay.
business today is worldwide. We do have clients in the U.S. Primarily. We do have clients in Europe and in Southeast Asia as well.
Is there any type of regulation with this potentially that inhibits, you guys being able to implement it in certain countries? Like, I'm not sure if there is, but just curious.
Yeah, so there are some regulations that are coming into different segments of the market in different geographies. There are some regulations in Europe where 3D mostly requiring 3D secure, or what's called as two-factor authentication or strong customer authorization, where you would get a text message to verify it's you as a second method of authorization, etc. But unfortunately, what we found is that fraudsters are very, very good at spoofing these as well, and eventually these regulated services don't really prevent fraud. Eventually, I think that the regulators would figure it out eventually, but it takes time. Obviously, when the regulatory bodies try to cope with situations that evolved on an hourly basis, they find themselves lacking, and that's where services such as ours and others in our domain become very effective.
Absolutely. So what's next? What do you guys have on your roadmap, coming up? How are you guys planning to grow and expand? Do you have any cool, tools or things you want to implement that are coming up in the next year? Um, what's happening next?
Yeah, so a lot of what we're doing is strengthening the engine, and primarily around behavioral analytics. I think you nailed it when you asked the question. The main thing here is for us to be able to identify the anomalies, and the anomalies we're trying to behave are in people's behaviors. So the main thing we're doing now is we're trying to find a way to fingerprint, right, based on behavior. So looking at how you traverse a certain website, we would know it is you, and that's something that's coming in the next couple of years, becoming stronger and stronger.
Yeah, just to touch on that really quick, behavioral analytics, I think you would have to like be on someone's phone, or
Yep.
you'd have to have access directly to the end user and then somehow bridge over to a major bank or credit card company, insurance company, whoever you're offering a service through or partnering with. just because you got to collect data on how someone, is swiping their card. What do they usually buy? Or do they make multiple transactions in a day? Do they make a couple transactions in a month? That takes some time to curate, put together. But I mean, if you can do it, I mean, it's going to make it very, very effective.
Exactly. So yes, with all our merchants, all of our clients, we do have a snippet that's that goes on the app, that goes on the web page, wherever, and we do track all consumer behavior. We do track every mouse gesture, every click, every keyboard strike, all of it on the client side, and we do work with with very large partners that curate information that is more, I would say, more standard. We do look at all the email addresses and IP addresses. We gather a lot of cyber intelligence. We do traverse the dark web as well to identify, if there are certain accounts being sold. There are accounts being sold by all of the major banks you are familiar with, all of the major exchanges. There's always a bunch of accounts on sale for Binance. You can buy an account for Binance for $100, fully KYC, go do whatever you want to do with it. So we traverse the dark web for gathering that information as well. All that goes into our machine learning models and helps us determine eventually whether a certain transaction is fraudulent or legitimate.
Okay, one more question. I just had one pop into my head, but how do you guys, with that coming up in the next couple of years, all this behavioral analytical stuff that'll help with the fraud prevention, how do you maintain that data privacy for the end user? Because that's very interesting stuff to a large company or a bank, anyone that wants to figure out how you're spending your money. There's lots of ways for them to take advantage of that. So is there a way for the end user to opt in or to sell that data? Or what are you guys thinking in terms of working through that problem?
Yeah, so first, we're completely GDPR and CCPA compliant, which means we store the data in a way that obviously assures the privacy of all of that. And we never gathered data that the individuals didn't, the consumers didn't opt in to providing to the merchants that we provide the service for. On the back end of that, we do not sell the data to anyone. We're not allowed to do that, so we don't do that. We do generate some very interesting insights on, I would say, an aggregated view. So there are very interesting pieces of information we can sell, but not on individual consumers. That is something we don't do. We wear the white hats, obviously.
Got it. So where can people go to learn more about nSure? Just the website? Do you guys have documentation somewhere? Are you guys building out a community? Where would you like to direct people?
Yeah, so first of all, go on the website. nSure.ai is our website. You can get a link on that to our documents, our docs.nSure.ai, and see our APIs, and everything is obviously completely open and shared with the community for people to be able to use and make it and take advantage of. So I would urge you to go to nSure.ai, and for those of you that are programmers, go check our APIs out on docs.nSure.ai.
What about you? Can people find you online?
On LinkedIn primarily.
Okay.
Primarily. Yep.
Perfect. Guys, go check out Alex on LinkedIn. Go check out nSure.ai and everything they're doing with fraud prevention. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you have not already. Alex, thank you for taking the time to come on the show. Really appreciate it. Really good episode. Let's do it again in the future, man.
Thank you very much, Brandon. Happy to be here.
Anytime. All right. Take care. Have a good week. Talk soon.
You too. Bye-bye.